Welcome to the Voodoo Power Podcast.
Welcome to Plates of Pancakes. We're sitting down today with Bill Nelson. Coach Nelson is the head strength conditioning coach, football coach, and physical education health teacher at Jamestown High School in North Dakota. Prior to Jamestown, he spent the first 5 years of his career as a collegiate strength conditioning coach at North Dakota State College of Science and North Dakota State University. Prior to JPS, he spent time at Aberdeen Central High School in South Dakota and Barnes County North High School in North Dakota. Nelson is in his 23rd year as a strength coach and sport coach in the public high school setting. So welcome to the show, Coach.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. That's pretty spot on for doing some digging. It's kind of a little bit scary to know what's out there, right? I don't like Googling myself or looking up yourself very often. So
sometimes that's the hardest thing to do is get a bio built. And so you try to go to LinkedIn and you try to go find some stuff and then patch it all together and hopefully it sounds right. I stole a little bit of that from your NHS SCA profile that Toby did on you. So that helped me tremendously.
Well, thank you. It's good to be here. It's one of those where I've listened to a lot of years and we talked when we met last summer and I went down to Lincoln to Matt Rule's clinic. I think I listened to about 7 podcasts in a row, and really? I learned some stuff about Napoli that I didn't know, and I know Coach Kramer a lot longer and probably a little bit better than Coach Knapp, but those two and Coach Miller over there at NDSU are tremendous resources.
That's what I was going to say. You won a state title here a while back, and we were up in North Dakota visiting Napoli, and I spent the day at North Dakota State hanging out with him, got to meet Kramer, got to watch him roll in a Devo group, and then I come back to the hotel. My wife was waiting on me, and where we were staying had like a little bar restaurant in it, and it was pretty cool. We went down there, and we had some food and a couple drinks, and it was during North Dakota State High School state finals games, so they were all playing in the bar, and that's pretty cool how you guys do it. Missouri, you got to pay to watch. There, they were just all on the TV.
No, that's where, because you're at an establishment, if you were, if you're sitting at home in North Dakota, you're probably going to have to pay for it. Now, I'm from South Dakota originally, and I've watched state championship games in South Dakota forever. They have South Dakota Public Broadcasting, and it's anybody can watch it for free. I mean, I'm kind of that nerd that once the playoffs and the state championships rolls around, I kind of know who's playing when. And I think 3 years ago, we didn't have school the whole week before Christmas. And we had just changed our cable provider, and I got Valley Sports. Well, you could about guess what I found. It was the Texas High School State Championships. And I mean, my garage just turned into a man cave. There's turf in there. There's a couple 55 and 65-inch TVs, and I probably spend way too much time out there. But, I just basically sat on my hand, and we got like 18 inches of snow, so we didn't have school for the week. And it was like, wow, I need to like pencil this in because it was pretty awesome to watch.
We got lucky. We went out and visited the last weekend of the fall before it really started snowing. So we were able to get up there and get back. And man, that stadium they play in is incredible. It's steep. I couldn't believe how steep it is, that if you're not careful, man, you'll fall down them stairs.
Yeah, it's I think it was fall of '93. They were still Division II, and they were playing Pitt State. I think Bison were number 1. Pitt State knocked them off the year before in I think it was the semis, and then like double overtime, and then NDSU had them open the Fargo Dome, and NDSU was preseason number 1, and their quarterback at the time tore his ACL in the game, and they won handily. But I don't remember how they did, but that was still in the Division II era, and I was just a pup in college then. But they do it right. They fill it up, and when they started their initial run, it was really hard to get tickets, and now it's kind of it's hard to win. You and I both know that. Some people don't get that it takes a lot you can get there. Once you get there, it's harder to sustain it and maintain it. And Coach Kramer took over. Him and Coach Miller took over from my mentor John Grogan, and so I got to know him. It took a while to kind of get through the to build up a relationship. And I had a student go be a student strength coach for him and Coach Miller, more so Coach Miller on the Olympic side. But it got to be to the point where it was like 5 years, and finally he's like, you got to quit calling. Just text me. You show up. It's okay, Coach. That's not me. I'm going to reach out and say, hey, can I go ahead and stop on in and watch workouts? And every time I'm over there, I'm 49 years old, and I wish I was 25 again, because I think we talked about this last summer. It's just all the opportunities are out there to learn, and it's like you're getting ready for summer. We had a really good winter, really good spring, and what kind of things can we plug and play to try to make better? I don't know, we're doing a couple different things this summer, and my wife might not be the most happy with me with the amount of time that I spend here, but it's kind of my hobby. It's what I do, and that's okay.
That was a question I had. Well, first of all, Pitt State's about an hour away from me, so I remember when they were really good.
Yeah. So.
But going back to you and what you're doing, me and you've talked a little bit. I should have had you on sooner after meeting you last summer, but things just get away from me, and so I'm glad we're sitting down now. But even back then, it impressed on me how much time you spend going to clinics, even as long as you've been doing this, going to clinics, going to people's facilities, seeing what they're doing so you can change what you're doing for the better. What keeps you going and pushing you hard to go see what everybody else is doing? I mean, I know your system has to be working. What's that drive to keep getting better?
I guess I'm not doing my job if I'm not trying to find better ways to make us better overall. I created a hashtag. It's not really a hashtag. I used to do a lot of social media stuff. Now I just follow, and I got to get back to doing more stuff, but it's better.every.day. It's not just a strength thing. It's not just an athletic development thing. It's not just a football thing. We want to be a positive influence for young individuals, and hopefully, like I tell my football kids, when they walk out of their individual meetings, the most important thing to me is 10, 12, 15 years from now, I get to see you hopefully in a career that you love, raising a family, and hopefully giving back, because that means more than. A couple years ago, a good friend of mine that I coached with in town for a number of years, he made the comment to me. He said, I coach for wedding invitations. And, I never thought of that. That's spot on. A friend of mine in the NHSCA he sent me a letter that a kid sent to him. It's their last week of school. And I'm like I teared up looking at it. And we've known each other for 9 years. And it's like, dude, that's why you do what you do. And that one little letter, and kids say thank you, they're appreciative, but when they go that little bit extra above and beyond, and I don't want to be satisfied. There's a lot of things that we could do better, and we'll just keep plugging away at it. And there's adversity and there's obstacles, and and somebody tells me we can't do something, we're going to figure out a way to do it. That's pretty much the way it rolls. So we're in the process of, we got a new room here about a year and a half ago, just about exactly 2 years ago. Most of our equipment here is the kids and I have fundraised over 14 years. And it's not been one where we don't call it and sell pizza or cookie dough or, go door to door. We do a lot of moves. We do a lot of jobs. And does it kind of get old a little bit here and there? Yeah. But when you see the look on a family's face or a person's face, and they're genuinely appreciative of your kids come in, and, we do a move, and somebody said, what do you charge? We don't charge anything. It's what's it worth to you? And most people are great. The kids always get fed, and a lot of times it's football players. And a lot of times comes out of my pocket, and that's fine, but they're willing to help others. And that's the whole goal. Is like I tell them, day one of class, day one of football, I'm here to serve you and I'm going to give you guys opportunities. It's a matter of, are you going to take advantage of those opportunities? There's a number of individuals, and the NHSCA is just one of them. And that's how you and I met. And it's pretty cool how the world of podcasts and the internet, and you go back when I got my CSCS back in '98, there was really no place to go up in North Dakota, South Dakota to get CEUs. There was a random one here or there, but you got to drive 5-6 hours to get someplace to do stuff. And I think this year NatCon will be 8, and then I've got one I'm speaking at down in Nebraska is 9. That'll be my 9th clinic this year. And it's kind of my clinic season between football and strength, and can I get out to schools? And I like to see different ways to do things. I'm not looking for wholesale changes, but just little things we can make to plug and play and make the situation better here.
Well, you were talking about fundraising and moving people. I read an article. I guess your local paper must have wrote it on how you guys fundraise and find people that are moving or need something done, and then you load the kids up and they help, and you're teaching multiple life lessons that if you want something, you got to go work for it. And then it's always better to help people. So you're getting a full rounded experience for your guys.
Yeah, and it's not, it's a lot of times it's guys, but sometimes we have ladies in there helping too. And I mean, my wife and I, in our first 11 years of marriage, we were in 17 different places, whether they be apartments or twin homes. We're in college, undergrad, grad school. We lived in Lincoln for a year, came back to North Dakota, and was at NDSU or NDSCS, Lincoln back to NDSU, then out to Jamestown, down to Aberdeen, back to Jamestown. So there's been a lot of moving and shaking. Been in the same place for the last 15 years, and it's kind of scary to think to have to move because I worked at UPS for 4 years and packed trucks, and I own an enclosed trailer, but it's one where we don't go looking for it. It just kind of comes. Now it comes and finds you, and kind of word is out. And there's other sports. University of Jamestown's in Jamestown here, and there's a couple sports teams that do a lot of stuff too. But just like any coach, you're there to help. It's all about life lessons. We don't do it for the pay, that's for sure.
If you're doing it for the pay, you pick the wrong business.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm too dumb to do anything else. And I like I said, I said this a lot, but I never have to get up and go to work. It's like the older I get, the earlier I get up, and get up a little after 4 every morning, and it's at school a little after 5, and first session starts at 6 on next Monday. And I have this thing where I don't know why it is, but I don't really sleep the night before the first day of summer training. That's not a good thing, but there's so much energy and adrenaline going that it usually, hey, we need this to go well. Hey, we need this to go well. You set this up, and I got to change that. That didn't roll as smooth as we hoped, but it's right. Let's try to do what we do.
So your summer program's getting ready to start. The BAD program, I believe that's what you call it, right? The BAD,
yep.
BAD program.
Yep. Blue Jay Athletic Development. So I was hired as the head athletic development coach initially, and then I was a volunteer, assistant football coach, and one of my best friends was the head coach, and he ended up leaving and took a job, and it was sucked. But it's like I'm at that point in my life where Jamestown's 16,000 people. It's not like we're living in a bigger area. That hey, if the strength coach doesn't jive with the football coach, unfortunately those two are linked way too close together. But I applied for it. I ended up getting it. I've got a lot of individuals on my staff that are a lot smarter than I am. I'm the plugger. I'm the planner. I've got an OC. I've got a DC. I've run the special teams in the past and had some other guys run them. And it's one where you're always trying to make. It's kind of like the weight room. It's just how can we consistently move this thing forward? And it's far from just me. There's a lot of moving parts, and we were our first one in 21, and that was the first state championship for Blue Jay football in 84 years. And we turned around and were fortunate to win it the next year. And, back to back. And it was like a lot of people. It's just amazing the outpouring of people that reached out. And there was a lot of ex-players. I'm like, guys, this started a long time ago. This wasn't just about the 2021 crew. I mean, this is back. One of my athletic trainer at the time in 21 was a senior the first year. I was a head coach, so it's you hear from a lot, and people are appreciative, and hey, we're in a league now where we are hopefully in the mix every year, and had was close a couple years ago and got bumped in the first round last year. And I'd like to think that we're going to be in the mix every year as long as we continue to do what we need to do.
So moving everything forward, what does your BAD program look like now? What are you doing to develop your guys this summer?
So we run, and every year we've kind of twist and turned it. We have in 2020, a lot of people was, how are you going to get weight rooms open because COVID? Well, we found a little loophole because if you it was a class, you'd be able to go ahead and have it. So we got ours accredited. The principal and our athletic director were on board, and so we get a quarter credit. So it started then, and it started with about 90 kids, and this year we're up in the 120, 130, and we've got about 280 kids signed up right now. And we go a high school session of 56 at 6 a.m. That's about probably 12 away from being full. Our 7:30 is full. Our 9 o'clock is full. And then we do a middle school session 6 through 8. That's about 10 away from being full. Our noon is about 10 away from being full. And then we created a third middle school session, 1:30. So they're all an hour and 15 minutes long. We can combine all of our movement stuff in with our lifting. Did something a little bit different last summer, and we used to have separate speed school sessions. Like we'd have a high school session, a speed school, and then another high school, weight room change session. And then we had another high school. Then we had a speed school before the middle school. So the middle school kids could come to that. The attendance wasn't quite what I wanted it to be. It felt like some kids were dodging the movement. So last year we just kind of took a leap of faith and we put everything in it. So, for example, I'm a rotations guy. I'm not a tier guy. I was probably doing rotations before Coach Ken had. No, I wouldn't say I wasn't doing them before, but the guy that I learned from John Grogan and then actually Brad Arnett is kind of one of my go-to guys too. That he's out in Waukesha, Wisconsin. That he was training. You're training multiple exercises at once. It's a constant rotation. There's very little downtime, but exercise 1A doesn't affect exercise 2A, which doesn't affect exercise 3A, which is 4A. And we're doing 4 different ones. So we have our warm-up rotation. That's about 8 minutes. You have to get through 3 sets. And then we hit I call it our main meal. And it's just kind of grown and evolved into that. It's just like you're eating a meal. You got your appetizer, you got your main meal, which are your core lifts with some other stuff. And then you have your appetizer at the very end. So it's our A and our 3Bs and then our 1C at the end. School year, it's hard to get through everything. You kind of have to chop some stuff down just with the volume of time that you do. But last summer, just took our dynamic warm up. And for example, if you're starting with an overhead squat in the weight room, I'm out in the hallway and I'm doing side shuffle to hugs. I come in the weight room or you come in the weight room, I'm going out side shuffle hugs and you're going to overhead squat. And then I come back in, I'm doing face pulls, you're doing rhythm skits, and the hallway is about 40 yards long. So that whole first rotation is your warm up. But we're getting our lifting with our movement, and we got some mobility stuff going on there. And it was a culture shock to the kids because we ramped it way up. But once they got into it, started doing it, then you hit your 1A, your 2A, and now Mondays and Wednesdays are typically linear speed stuff. Tuesday, Thursday are COD, agilities, and plyo. And by the time you're getting to the meat of your exercise, your big stuff's probably completed. So it's, for example, we're on Monday we press vertically and we do an Olympic pull of some sort variation. Tuesday we bilateral squat. We'll stay with all the young kids go to front squat, and the older kids will stay at back squat. And then once we hit the fall, we go back to front squat for 6 months, and it's worked for us. And that's also our pulling day, vertically and horizontally. And then Wednesday's bench day. Who doesn't like bench day, right? And then we're usually catching. So where we're doing a high pull, something of that variation, a little bit faster movement. And then Thursday, is a single leg day, and we're doing some variations of, different variations of pulling. So the Monday, Wednesday, and the Tuesday, Thursday mimic each other. We roll the 4 days a week, Friday, Saturday, Sunday off. But the difference this summer is Bixby High School. I followed their football program for a long time. And they had something I heard called the Steak Eaters Club. So Coach Montgomery started his first year, and that was perfect attendance. So to kind of spin off with our class stuff, we're going to have the Carnivore Club. And if you get perfect attendance 3 nights a week, we have either a double day, which is something I got from Coach Kramer and Coach Napoli a long time ago. So if you want to come in for that second lift, you can. It's a lot less volume, shorter time frame. Or you can get a makeup that night. Let's be realistic. There's summer vacations, there's camps, everybody's got the same stuff going on. It's busy. So, trying to go ahead and, hey, what can we do to try to stimulate this? I have no idea what it's going to look like. I'm kind of taking a chance. And Coach Montgomery said, like, the first year, I think they had like 6 kids, and last summer they had 99. So either you get to choose a steak or a big chicken breast to eat. And we'll have a big grill out that last night of training, and I don't know. We'll see how it goes. Like I said, there's been a lot of talk, and if you read through the registration, you see that. But some just want to fill through and go to the Google form and hit the app. And I didn't see all that extra stuff you have going on this year. Well, there's opportunities for the kids to get better. We're gonna have fun over here. In here, we're gonna work hard. There's no ands, ifs, or buts about that. But the goal is to make these guys better athletes. And when I was a younger guy, I used to chase numbers, which I think we all can agree we probably did at one time or the other. And I think that we probably, I think our strength levels are probably at or higher than they've ever been right now. And we've just doing some different things, you know what I mean? And it's not chasing the singles. Like, we don't max. We just hit heavy singles from time to time. train moderate, train light, train heavy, whatever we need to do at that given time, and you work around the sports teams. But the summer is really the one time when, everybody is hopefully together. Is it ever going to be perfect and get everybody here? For forever, I'd be like, yeah, why do we have this kid, or why are these kids coming? And, football wise, we're probably at 95%. Those guys that aren't here, they've got some different things going on. And you make it when you can. But training like an athlete as opposed to training like a bodybuilder is, you and I both know that's 100 times different. So we'll go for 4 weeks, and then we turn around and have the week off like everybody does in 4th of July. And we used to always train through it, and I'm like, screw it, we're going to keep training. And then we used to go 5 days a week. We 2 speed days and 3 lift days. And then we went to the 4-day, and it's like, kids are coming back off that week off of 4th of July, and they're popping numbers that are good. They're refreshed with rebounds. Coaches are refreshed, and, could have learned that about 20 years ago. You know what I mean? But it's, you live and you learn, you take notes, and I think every coach kind of gets you find some stuff you like, and you're working with it, and you're training it, and it's going well. But then one of the kids will, hey, coach, why don't we do this anymore? Good call. Why don't we do that anymore? Kind of circle the horses back, and like, then when I went to look at the programming, I'll probably take, we kind of I've always used a little bit of the tri-phasing stuff in and out. For the last 4 months, we did something quite a bit different, and it worked. I mean, we had a class, one of my female strength classes has 24 ladies, and 22 of the 24 all hit 45s on for singles. 22, which is really freaking cool. You know what I mean? And it's like, we weren't chasing numbers. And then I look at our bench and our squat and our clean stuff, even on the football side of things, and I see where our numbers are at. You kind of have those benchmark numbers you always kind of look at, and we're way ahead of where we were in the past. And so, but putting all the movement stuff in, we had some pretty good, results at the end. We don't have just true test days. We just do it within, and we get the jump mats out. And I used to be a laser guy, and then the money that you're spending on it, it's like, when you fundraise everything, you kind of gotta, I'm still a paper guy. I'm not like Coach Kramer and Coach Knapp. I don't have the actual piece of paper out anymore. But I do more of the recording now. We do watch sets. I stole that from Coach Kramer, and we record sets and watch sets, and now kids are monitoring their stuff like we used to way back when. I kind of buzzed through the numbers, and like during the school year, it's becomes a little lengthy because you're spending 2.5 hours a day going through yesterday's sheets or last week's sheets. Okay, this is what the program says. Hey, where did they get? How did they rate it out? And but like you said, it's kind of disappointing I couldn't go to Nebraska today because I saw Coach Venables had some stuff up on it. And I'm like, I know Nick Krause was there, and those couple gentlemen, other people there that were going to be there. I would have liked to get down and see, but you can't make it to everything though either. So I'd rather drive than fly, by the way. But you do what you got to do, I guess.
I don't know where I am. There's a lot of things I want to drive and see, but sometimes flying just to get there ain't so bad.
No, I hear you. It's when we were in Texas, when I went to see you, or when I met you, we host a quarterback camp from a group out of, and actually go down the Jeff Trickey quarterback camps. We got into those like 6 years ago, and I had to get back. So everybody else in our group, they left at 9, 10, 11. Well, here I had to leave at 6 a.m. So it kind of puts a hindrance, and everybody's hanging out, and I'm like, I got to be up at 3 to go jump on a plane and whatever. And so it was a little bit of my one flight got delayed. It was a little bit, I'm sure, in Denver, it was a little bit entertaining seeing a overweight bald coach trucking down the gateway, trying to get to my flight on time. Luckily I made it back in time. So, but we actually have camp again for NatCon this year. It's in Memphis, and same thing, we got it that night. So, but it just becomes something that you do. But flying's good, don't get me wrong. I just, I don't know. You see 1 or 2 flying movies, and I don't know. You're a lot more controlled driving, I guess. But yeah, it does take some time. But there's a coach in Elk River, Minnesota, that Mike Bryan, that we road trip to Nashville. We road trip to Indianapolis a couple times. The Nashville one was almost a reach across and slap each other to make sure the other one's still awake. Did you try to make the run straight through? And but I know there's a lot of guys that go to NatCon that end up doing that. So I tell Coach Cash he needs to get more of them up in the Midwest so we can do that.
Yeah, I'm sure it's tough finding the facility and getting it all set up with enough rooms and a big enough facility to host everybody. But yeah, anything up a little further north gets a lot easier.
It does. I mean, but it's so cool. Like, we went to Kyle Keese at Denton Geyer. We went, there was about 6 or 7 of us went down and spent the day with him. Met him at the first ever NatCon, and he did the grid. And no, it was maybe the second one, but met him, and it's like always kind of chatted with him a little bit and questioned him, and to get to go see what that is environment is like in Texas. It's like you hear the stuff, you see things, and then you see it live, and it's like I come back and I'm telling our kids, I'm like, you guys have no idea. I said they're freshmen day one. They trained separately. They had to enter the weight room 13 separate times because they didn't enter with as much enthusiasm as they needed to. Like I shared with my leadership council their warm up and how much energy is in their warm up with their varsity guys. My kids are looking at me like I'm crazy. You know what I mean? And I'm like, that's juice in the tank, man. And you tell me if you got juice in the tank or don't have juice, how's that going to work? If I'm walking around like a bump on a log and don't have any energy, it's not going to be very fun to be here. It's some days it's maybe a challenge, but it's fun to get out and see other things. But you go other places and watch workouts, and it's different, and they're tremendously successful doing things completely different. It's some are big groups, some are small groups, and I guess that's the thing. It's whatever works best for you, your program and your community and your your environment, and you make your environment what it is.
Coach Keese was on the show, and after it was all over, he invited me down this summer to kind of watch what they're doing when they're getting ready. And I'm pretty excited about that. I mean, get to go see a facility like that and what his guys are doing and what he's kind of got set up down there, I think will be really cool.
The probably biggest difference is just the energy and the discipline, like, and how their head coach came in and how they've kind of grown and evolved and changed. And like when he's talking, all 3 guys have a spot on a rack. Each of them have a specific spot. And when he listens to instruction, they respond yes or no. So it's just all the little details and intricacies. You know what I mean? And I'm like, I would have a hard time. But I mean, I think there was 4 coaches going on in there. We went and we saw their varsity lift. Their JV was out. Their JV guys were out doing speed and agility, and their freshmen were out practicing. And they were on a 3-tier rotation. And the varsity guys finished the practice, and then the JV guys came in the weight room next, and the freshmen came in the weight room last. They had like 3, just a well-oiled machine, and everything that they're doing. And the freshmen are obviously a little different than the JV, and JV is a little different than the varsity, but all in all, everybody's squatting, everybody's hinging, everybody's pushing, everybody's pulling, everybody's changing direction, bending it, hitting all the components that need to be hit. But yeah, it was impressive to see. And then they're like, okay, what can I steal? What can we plug and play to try to emulate, and take from that and try to make things up here in our situation better? And that's ultimately what it's. You're trying to find things that you can take and you can see, and seeing a lot of stuff that you do with your kids that you train, which is pretty cool. Because when we got to talk, and you're telling me that you're a horse guy, and we've talked about this in the past, that my in-laws are my nephew that rodeoed him and my sister-in-law there out at the house, or coming on the way to the house right now. So I'm taking my nephew fishing tomorrow and hang with him. But the horse stock will come up, and he's, you and him would have a lot more detailed conversation than him and I can have, or you and I can have. But it's still pretty cool about what you got going on there in Missouri. So
it's been something I never saw happening. But, we've been fortunate. We've had some pretty good athletes. So that always helps make it look probably a little better than what it is.
By the way, you do have a nice cap. I mean, I know that that green and gold kind of sticks out. It's like, yep, that's where I got my master's. That's where I coached at. We've had other people play at other places, and SDSU and NDSU have had tremendous rivalries. My father-in-law is in the Hall of Fame at SDSU, in the Basketball Hall of Fame. So it's a constant, I'm like, hey, I root for them all the time. Not against NSU, UND. I root for UND a lot. It's just, there's that one game a year that, you tend to root for the green and gold. And if that's where your bloodlines are at, got to do what you got to do. So
I had a wonderful time up there on my trip. I got treated so well. I got to use the weight room. I got to watch a Devo lift. It was incredible how everything works up there. And then they were playing Missouri State, so that worked out. I got to see a Missouri team play North Dakota, and the way they come in the stadium and everything reminded me a lot of Nebraska, almost like a tunnel walk, and then the way they come in, very, very well done.
You always the lights go out and the thunderstruck comes on, and that's been a mainstay for a long time. That was pre-Coach Polasek, pre-Coach Enns, pre-Coach Kleineman, Coach. I think it might have even been pre-Coach Bull, honestly. And it's they did that back when I was there too, when Coach Babbage was there. But it's the lights go out, and you see the doors open, and there's Coach Kramer and Coach Knapp, and Coach Knapp's back now he's gone for a little. He was there and then he was gone and he came back now. So it's cool to kind of get chills just, thinking about it. And then they pull up on their big video boards. They've got constant cameras throughout the state, so there's, we've got in Buffalo, we've got a Buffalo Museum here in Jamestown. So the Jamestown, there's a quick flip of the Jamestown, interstate sign. I mean, it's all over the state. It's not just a couple spots, but yeah, Thunderstruck's playing. I mean, you and I are going to be gone for about 100 years. I keep telling kids, like, Thunderstruck's always going to be good. Enter Sandman's always going to be good. It's the kids may not like, there's certain music we won't listen to in here, and that's okay. But so one of the stupid fallbacks was, remember old Jock Jams in 1993?
Yeah.
Jock Jam radio does not get old. You might have to change the tune every now and then, but it's always got good music on it.
Yeah, you just got to order them off TV.
Yeah, I think I have the original. What is a CD? I don't have a CD player anymore. We don't even have a DVD player anymore that you can watch DVDs or CDs on. But it's like, I remember having the original Jock Jams DVD. I think I had the cassette tape of Thunderstruck, burned that out a couple times, had the Metallica, Enter Sandman, burned that out a couple times. But yeah, there's just certain things that are going to be good for a really long time, hopefully.
And kids gravitate to it. I'm shocked every time I go out there. It's way different now. It's YouTube. So we just pull up YouTube and then we just listen to what we want to listen to. Music's pretty unfiltered here, but they still gravitate back to that old stuff. I don't know why. It's like divorced dad rock out there the majority of the nights I'm out there.
Yeah, and it's every now and then, like in our female class, like, hey, can we listen to, like, I hear Taylor Swift. I'm not a Taylor Swift guy, but you gotta kind of appease the masses at times. There's, that I'll let them filter the rap out, but if there's certain words that are being said, boom, it's done and gone, and it doesn't come back for quite some time. And let me hook you guys up with some 80s, 90s rap. Let's get back to the little Beastie Boys action. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, some of the kids kind of roll their eyes. No Sleep Till Brooklyn comes on. I mean, come on, how can you not like that?
Brass Monkey.
So, exactly. So I think the first one I ever heard was "You Got to Fight for Your Right to Party." That came out when I was like a sixth grader, and there was a bunch of us in my class, come from a small town in South Dakota, and we all had the cassette tapes. Like, you play it, hit rewind, whoop, and then hit play again, hit rewind, hit play again, and and a little MC Hammer, Never Hurts, a couple songs there. So
I remember the first time I heard Beastie Boys, the neighbor had it. He had it on a cassette, and I was probably kindergarten or first grade. And then he had when the Fat Boys were big, he had the Fat Boys cassette, and then the old.
I forgot about those guys.
Yeah, then the old LL Cool J. Some of the original stuff he did.
Yeah, now when you even get back to like the Run DMC stuff, that's not going to play in here, just because it's more times than not. I don't know if there's a filtered song by Run DMC out there. Maybe there is, that I don't know about. But
you could play It's Tricky.
Yeah, that's probably true.
You're in a public school setting, so you're what you can listen to is way different. Out here, I'm trying to always be honest with the parents. It's a little bit different of a setting. Like, look, it's uncensored. This is one place I want them to be themselves. I want them to come here and just be who they are. So I don't really jack with the radio too much. So if you walk in and you hear a song you don't like, hey, I'm sorry, but this is what brings the kids and the ability to be themselves. Now in public school, you don't get away with that, but when you got a garage gym, it kind of gets to fly.
Been there, done that a long time ago. I was my wife, when I was telling her I was coming on this, and I was telling her you're a horse guy down in Missouri, and she's like, do you remember that first summer we came back? Where'd you train kids? I'm like, I trained. I had 3 squat racks. We had 3 platforms set up. We trained in a horse barn. There was 2 horses that would come in and out of the stalls. And actually, the president of my Busha club, he's an optometrist, and his dad, I had like 30 kids training. We were going up and down a gravel road, pulling sleds, and it was dirty and it was grimy, and it was awesome. Yeah, you'd get off the squat rack and you'd turn around, and 8 feet away, there's a horse sitting in the stand there eating. And music was probably a little bit down and not so much because you didn't want to spook them, but hey, it was a place to train and you're making memories. So
We used to sprint in the alleyway. I'd set the timers up because it was smooth and hard, and then we'd run. If we went out the door, we could get a flying 10 in, but it was really easy to get a 5 into a 10 in there, and they had a good surface to run on. Yeah, right in front of the stalls. There'd be horses in there just watching them run by. I mean, it is what it is.
that's pretty awesome. And kids will, it's come back. Kids will come back and say, "Hey, coach, remember when you told us about that?" No, I'm sorry, man. I don't remember. Do you remember when we did this out at Loyston at the horse farm? Do you remember when you had us do this? No, man. I'm sorry. I don't remember. It was a few years ago. So, but still good memories, though.
When I was still riding colts a few summers ago, I'd just saddle up a colt, and then I'd sit on the colt, and then I'd let them run in the arena, and then that colt could get used to them just buzzing by them. And we found some ways to make it merge. I don't know, I don't know how well it worked, but it did merge.
You didn't have any races going on or anything? You on the horses and the kids racing here or no?
No, on them colts like that, I hate to get it. You hate to do too much, but I'd cut them a little bit. You know what I mean? I'd have the kid go and then stop, and then I'd get the horse set back up and then roll him through, and then follow the kid when he come back through. Some like agility stuff, but I don't know. You find ways to make it fun, and then I could kill 2 birds with 1 stone. I could get my riding done, and I could get my training done.
That's cool. We're talking about the music, and that was one thing that way back when Coach Kramer, and I don't know, it may have been before Coach Knapp was there, but usually when they were training a long time ago, there's no music. Like all you're hearing is weights clanging and guys, athletes encouraging each other. I'm like, I tell the kids, you don't like my music, we can turn it off. I'd much rather just hear weights moving and people yelling and, and encouraging each other and getting on each other and helping each other out. That means more to me than having AC/DC or whatever, you know what I mean? So we can go one of 2 ways. We can have my stuff on or, give you a chance, but if something wrong comes up, it's gone. So it was when I was a GA, I was at NDSU, and we were getting a workout, and Coach Grogan was there, and it was myself and Brad, the assistant. We're all lifting, and the President Bush came through, and after they came through, our stereo quit working. Like it just would not, for whatever reason, I don't know, something happened. So we had this stupid boom box out in the old weight room on the south end, which is now the shack. We were upstairs above the administrative offices. Like we couldn't start heavy training until a certain time, and the secretaries came in early because we had 14 platforms going, and we used to train the entire team in the off season at one time. It was loud in there, but anyhow, we're working out. Coach Grogan did not like heavy metal. I think I had some like Master of Puppets or Megadeth going on, whatever it was. And Brad and I were over on the platforms cleaning or something, and he comes over to us and hits stop, looks at me, kind of takes the CD out, lays it on the ground, picks up a 45-pound steel plate, looks at me, smiles, and drops it on the CD up. I guess there's no more Master of Puppets or Megadeth. So, and then I think we went to the old, he liked the Patriots, the old Mel Gibson. Well, whatever. You do what you got to do, right? So, but yeah, you find out that G maybe didn't care for heavy metal too often. So, all right, that's fine.
Everybody's got the stuff they like, out there. I can remember some of the best days where usually it's that last bench press day before the first football game. And I went in there one time, and it wasn't even music. It was when the Florida Gators documentary come out. 2 years ago?
Okay.
And they had that blaring. they were all screaming at each other. They were back slaps. It was hot in there, because it's summer. And
Is that more when Tebow was talking about like they would go in after? Okay, I watched that.
they was watching that episode, and they were so hyped, and it wasn't even music. It was just the atmosphere. I don't know what it is about that first week of football that really brings out that high emotional state. But man, yeah, those guys, they'll always crush it. I know you're kind of tied to Nebraska a little bit. You talked about living in Lincoln a couple times, and you've spent some time with Boyd Epley. You've got to spend some time with Corey Campbell. What have you kind of taken from Husker Power?
The first time I ever met Boyd, it was just by chance, and it was in 1995. My uncle I was a student athletic trainer, and kind of didn't really know I knew what a strength coach was because Coach Grogan was a strength coach, but my uncle was an orthopedic surgeon and said, "Hey, I'm going to have a sports medicine clinic. You want to come down? I'm going to fly down and pick up Boyd." Well, I didn't really understand what he meant, fly down. Well, we get to Yankton, we jump in a 4-seater plane. My Uncle Mark and the pilot are up front, and I'm in back. We fly into Omaha, and I look out, and here comes Boyd comes walking. And literally, I rub knees with him. They'll back up to Yankton, and it's like, "So you want to be a college strength coach?" And I'm like, because, I'm definitely interested. And he said, I need somebody to demo for me. Can you demo? Now, we're talking back, you remember the old complete conditioning for football. Mike Arthur and Brian Bailey, they put that together, but it was basically the metabolic training 2 days, your strength block 2 days. Anyhow, so for that night and the next morning, when every time Boyd talked, I demoed for him. Well, I had Birkenstocks, 2 pairs of khaki shorts, and 2 polos. Well, there was no hind end or crotch left in the khaki shorts by the time I got done because all the squatting, which was an amazing experience, don't get me wrong, you know what I mean? And then, when we lived down there, he was kind of done coaching. He was on the administrative side, and Brian Bailey's worked for Life Center. Brian Bailey's girlfriend worked out at our place. So I ended up through Brian. He said, "Hey, you got to get help if you had a Husker football coach that you knew." Well, there was a couple of those assistants trained at our facility. So it was actually Coach Brown, Ron Brown is the one I talked to. And the next morning I get a call from Boyd, and I went and hung out for about 3 weeks, just as a fly on the wall. You know what I mean? Just watching training and what can I learn and what can I pick up. And then I got the call to come back to NDSU with Coach Grogan and be a GA. And then 2020, it was literally the week before COVID hit. I went out and visited. I was out in Lexington and visited Amber Burson, and I spent that Tuesday with Stu Venables and had some other stuff set up. And that week is when COVID hit. But Stu had set up a meeting with Boyd, and it was cool because now Boyd's not on the coaching side of things, but he says he remembered me. Whether he used to be quite a bit lighter and had hair, but it was just the fact that that's the birthplace of college strength and conditioning was right there in 1972. Bob Devaney saw Boyd work out and said, "Hey, I'd like you to train the football team." So this is where things start. And then with the Matt Rule camps and the clinics, been down to all 3 of those, and every year, Coach Campbell, year 1, I was the last guy waiting until he got done talking. He was in a hurry to get down to practice, so we chewed the fat a little bit on the way down. And then year 2, we got to go in that new weight room that they have. And as he comes walking up, you remember me, so we walked in, we talked for about a half an hour, and then he had stuff to do. And then him and his staff spoke at one of the NHSCS regionals in Nebraska. And him and his 7 assistants spoke. And it was really cool because typically when you go to listen to a head strength coach, they're going to probably speak. And his assistants spoke as much as he did. They, by position group, they broke it down and came and chatted with me beforehand. Then we chatted afterwards. And I went down to the clinic. I went down, drove all night and got down there and slept in the parking lot and walked in at 6. Myself and Nick Charles went, and we got to watch the team train. And we walked in, he had cards printed off for us from all 3 groups. Hey, here's what we got going on. And he's really just evolved to the point where, a lot of times it's the head strength coach and you hear 7 other voices going on. And yeah, if he had something he had to say, he's going to say it, but picked up just a lot of little things. And obviously you look at the athlete that I kind of have this basis in my head of, you know, the Huskers were so dang good in the 90s, and their strength program was so far ahead of everybody. And then it, even the level of athlete that they brought in, that they got run there right now compared to, and he came in 3 years ago. Like, we came to that first clinic, a friend of mine from Sioux Falls went, and we walked in, and within 20 minutes, 25 minutes, every coach for the Huskers, including Coach Rules, shook hands with us. And they were constantly going around. Plain and simple, it's the best food I've ever seen at a clinic. Like, every year is spectacular. And Coach Polisic actually came and spoke this last year. You know, I had it to him, and Coach Cook, the volleyball coach, spoke, and he was phenomenal. And it's like, but no, it's pretty hard not to, you know, get excited when you start seeing where, because the old West Stadium strength, you know, the weight room, that was I don't even know what that was, but they had the first, years ago, they used to have the old bench press that I think Boyd used right away. It was a bench, it was a set of changeable dumbbells, and it was a universal machine. And those were like behind, you know, like red ropes you couldn't touch. It was the original Husker Power logo. And obviously things have continued to grow and change, but it's the birthplace where a lot of it took off. Now everybody's grown and changed, and you look at things that, you know, Coach Campbell's going, and you kind of got to, don't have a cell phone, but you shoot an email and it doesn't go. I get it, because those guys get contacted by a lot of people. But he's been gracious, and he said, hey, anytime you want to come down, shoot me an email, doors wide open, which is cool, because I'll keep going to that as long as I can, as long as it's available. So you got to take advantage of those opportunities. That's what I always tell young coaches. You don't know unless you ask. You know, and I may sound dumb a lot, but you're never going to know. You're never going to learn. And, well, why do you do this? Well, why do you do this? I'm not questioning, but it's like, you know, do you do this? Well, no, I don't. It doesn't really work for us in our setup. And because every one of us is different. Your room is different than my room's different than Coach Venable's room. That's different than Coach Brokaw's room. That's different than Coach Cash's room. You just go right down the line, but it's cool to see other people do things, because it's like, I've been in some really small schools and watched some workouts, and I'll find a little something like, that's a really cool. They've got that hooked up, or never thought of doing it that way, or a little tweak. And I don't know, even kids, we've got some exercises that we have named after a couple kids, just because of the way that they, like how we do rows off of the power blocks. And we call them Webster rows, because one of the kids always put his head on his forearm and his back was like immaculately straight. It's like, so we start calling them Webster rows. You know, that I'm on the third of three brothers now. You know what I mean? That's so. But yeah, you ask one question, Coach, and I go off in about 12 different tangents. I apologize.
I knew what I was getting into.
We've talked enough, so yeah.
When I first met you down there, I was supposed to be in a class, and I don't know what happened. I think I had like a few minutes between the class that I was supposed to be at. I sat down at your table, and then the next thing I knew, I looked at my watch, and it was like class was over. People were coming back. It was like 2 hours later, and I just totally missed it. I'd lost track of time. I had so much fun talking. So, yes, I knew very much what I was getting into with this.
So here's one. I think you had Coach Kyle Spear on, right?
Yeah, and he come up and talked to you while we were at that table. Yeah.
Yeah. So we met. I don't know which one it was. We were there the first night. It was a couple years ago at the social, and I think it might have been down in Nashville. And we're talking, and said, I'm in North Dakota. And he said, you know, you ever heard of Jim Kramer? You know, it just opened up. So he FaceTimed Coach Kramer like 11:30 at night, and Coach Kramer answered in bed with him. He's got his bifocals on, and I jumped on the phone next to him, and he starts laughing, and it was pretty cool, you know. And we're all connected some way, shape, or form. You know what I mean? You start connecting the dots, and it's pretty cool, to say the least.
I had a great time down there talking to Coach Spear, but then when he was on the podcast, I really had a good time.
The NatCon is awesome, and HSSC it's so awesome, but it's I wish, like I said, I could go back and be 25 and start all over again because of all the opportunities. But like sitting and chatting with you with an hour, you know, you start learning. Then I started following I listened to a couple beforehand, well, then I started listening to them. And like I said, that kept me awake going down to Lincoln, because I I got into doing them, and then one led to another, led to another. And it's like, well, why change it, right? So I didn't even turn on my radio the whole time, and it's an 8-hour drive. So
I'm glad I could do that. I never saw it turning into this, and I never saw people saying yes. I thought it was going to be just kind of one of them deals that fizzled out and went away. And I've been really fortunate to get to talk to coaches week after week that are doing some really incredible stuff.
yeah, and there's such a wide variety of speakers. It's not like everybody is coming from the same venue, the same atmosphere, the same, whether it's a high school or a college. Everybody's got a little bit different story, and that's what makes this profession pretty awesome.
And what's really cool is somebody will say something and you won't really put a whole lot into it, and then years later you figure out how they got to that point and how important that point really was, and you just missed it because you didn't understand what they were saying. That's been really cool about the podcast.
And I mean, it's fun because I don't know. I look around the room and what we have and how we do things, and there's so much of what is here. Yeah, like you learn your base philosophy when you're young, and then I go back to like my first years as a college strength coach, and I was wet behind the ears, 23 years old as a head strength coach, and there's a couple. I run into a number of those guys, and I'm like, man, I'm sorry. We used to do we did some dumb things. I had to get through some dumb things. If you look back on it, hey, we got faster, we got stronger, we got better, and you create those memories. And so, but I go back to, you've heard this said before, people have said it before, but the coaches are the best thieves, and I don't have anything original that's my own. It's been stealed, it's been beg, borrow, and steal, and you know what I mean? And we'll change the name of it, or hey, I got this from this guy, I got this idea from that coach, or I was down at this coach's place, and she helped me with this, and so that's the beauty of it.
Or if you do think you have an original thought, with a little bit of study, and you find out it was original to you, but it was original to somebody else as well. Somebody else has already thought of it somewhere along the way.
Yeah, and it's we went to this, I don't know, like when you're young and you're talking squatting, you know what I mean, and you're getting the depth on a squat, and it's like, well, we always preach femur parallel. Well, we started this thing years ago with it's not a box squat, it's not a ball squat, but we use med balls. With our bumper plates, you alter it depending on how your height is, and it's all about how tall you are. And if your butt doesn't touch the ball, and we're not bouncing off the ball, and then you start seeing, here, I thought that, and then I've seen about 100 other people use it. I'm like, oh, I guess I didn't start that. You don't think you started that to start with, but you go back and there's stuff that way back when people were doing, and then it kind of phased out, and then it comes back. Everything is just, how do you want to put it? Everything is kind of asymmetrical. He's constantly circulating around, and that's the beauty of this profession. There's more than one way to skin a cat.
And everywhere you go, it's working. Different aspects of it that may work in your room, like you said, may not, but it's working somewhere. So there's tons of paths you can go down pretty easy.
There's things that over the years we've picked up, like Amber Burson. We have a NatCon group, and there's like 14, 15 of us, and there's been a number of those guys have been on your podcast before, and there's some that haven't. But some days there's 10 texts, and some days there's 300 text messages. But it's like, hey, have you guys ever done this? I got into RPR a long time ago, like 7 years ago. And before every football practice, before every workout, we'll start day one, because there'll be some kids that have never done it before. The room's quiet. We have a leader. It takes about 2.5 minutes, and some people do it, some people doesn't. But like I said, there's more than one way to skin a cat. It's worked for us. We've been knock on wood. We've stayed away from a lot of things. I'd like to think that we've stayed away from some big injuries. And now I say that, I'm knocking on wood though, so we'll be okay. But it's like one year we didn't do RPR 3 times, and all 3 times we had sizable injuries. It seems as a placebo effect that, hey, an athlete A is gonna, they're doing the same dynamic warm up, and the kids will do it thousands of times, but we're not having groin and hamstring problems when we're getting warmed up properly. Why change it? Our dynamic takes about 6 minutes top to bottom. There's things we've stolen over the years, and it was way back from my time at NDSCS, and then we changed it to NDSU and then tweaked it a little bit. It's kind of one of those things where if it isn't broke, why look to fix it, you know?
I'm sure there's small adaptations you make, and just see how it works. But yeah, once you have the big rocks in place, you're not really jacking with them anymore. You're just tweaking the little rocks that are around it.
Yep, it's the way you can do things. So, and then I don't know. You have people come visit you, and you go visit people, and then share. Well, why do you do this? Why do you set your stuff up this way? Or whether it's a movement pattern, or whether it's some speed stuff, or change direction, or could be strength. Everybody's got their own way of doing things, and we're a squat, we're a clean. We have hex bars, we use them inside and outside. We even started doing some old school deadlifts again. That's something that was around when I started training, then it kind of disappeared, and nobody was, and then now everybody is. I mean, we've always cleaned, but how we clean? Like in COVID, we quit full cleaning. We went to a hang clean, and it was because we couldn't drop stuff. I had 96 mats on the gym floor and 14 racks, and everybody had their own station, but we couldn't drop weights. But what I've learned is that we were still getting really explosive. We cleaned up our technique, and then we went back to pulling from the floor about 2 years ago, and just kind of, I don't know, that's just kind of been something that there's something about catching a clean that your body, how it, absorbs it and absorbing contact and so on and so forth. And I'm not the most detailed scientific guy that there is, and there's a lot more people a lot smarter than me. I just know that some things that work and some things that don't work, and some things that kind of scare me that I probably won't go near, just because I was a student athletic trainer for 2.5 years, and it's like you always kind of look at the injury prevention side of things. People see you and they predetermine, well, you're a big guy, so you're gonna bench heavy and you're gonna squat heavy, and well, we're gonna move well first. We're gonna bend. Yeah, we're gonna squat. We're gonna push. We're gonna pull. We're gonna hinge and everything this side of the sun. But I mean, ultimately, the whole goal is to create a better athlete. And like I tell the kids, if you're coming out injury free and you have a better confidence, everybody's got those stories of those confidence things. And there was a kid that I probably tell it once a year about a kid that I had in Aberdeen that we were doing basement squats, and then we were doing, goblet squats, or plate squats and goblet squats. And we went to a basement squat bar on the shoulders, and the kid gets pinned. You know what I mean? On the bottom, and he was a bigger kid. And it's like, and then he just kept working and kept working and kept working and kept working. And the year later, he's, squatting a pretty significant amount of weight. And that kid goes from the quiet, shy kid that heads down when he's walking, and now he's squatting big. Hey, what's going on? He's walking up, the chest is up. You know what I mean? And it's amazing those things that can, what a weight room can do for your confidence, too.
You see a lot of it. They walk in little kids, and then when it's all said and done, they're mature. They have confidence. They take that to the field, and their life just improves because they're in the weight room.
It is. And so many kids will comment later on that, hey, are you still doing this, or can you send me a workout? I can send you the stuff we did 10 years ago, but there may be some variations that you're not going to understand. But a lot of times kids will graduate and go off, and I'll get an email back, hey coach, can you send me workouts from class last year? By all means, we're a free weight place, which a lot of people are these days anyway, but it'd be nice to be able to go into any hotel. If you're off on a family vacation, you want to get a workout in, you don't need platforms and squat racks, and you know what I mean? Be able to get a 20-30 minute bodyweight workout in, or a plate or a light dumbbell, whatever that may be, and whatever the goal is. But it's cool how you watch kids, some graduate and get done and never do it again, and that's fine. And some just continue to evolve and grow and keep training, and those are the fun both ways.
Well, I know you got family coming in. I've kept you on here probably longer than you actually meant to be, but I wanted to ask you about this before we got off here. And I believe it was maybe in Toby's article that he did for NHSSCA about you, but it talks about the head of the ship has to be the greatest servant. So setting it up where even though you're the boss, even though you're the man, you're the football coach or the head strength coach, finding ways to let the athletes know that you are there for them and you are their, I guess, their best interests you have in mind all the time, and you're there to serve them? How are you able to do that?
From an activity standpoint, try to get out and watch the kids compete. And I don't care if there's some things that are just impossible because of what my schedule is and what's going on. But during the winter time, I'll get to at least there's some nights you have 4 or 5 things going on. I've went to plays before. I've went to band and choir concerts. My kids are graduated now, but you go to those things to watch kids, and then the kid the next day, you came to my choir concert last time. Yeah, man. Of course I'm going to come to your choir concert. And there's a couple places I'll go to grab bite to eat that, I just go to say hi to the kid. And you always leave that door open that the goal isn't never about how much weight you're moving. It's about, you learning how to do the hard things in life. And I think way too much these days, everybody wants, I don't want to say everybody, that's a bad word, I'm sorry. Way too many people want the easy way out. Well, you know what, you got to roll your sleeves up and deal with the hard. That's what life's all about. It's, I told you this earlier that don't tell me we can't. There's always a way. You always got to find that way. Sometimes it's hard. Sometimes you get thrown curveballs and you don't know why things happen, but get out and support kids. And, we've had some issues where I tell the kids that I've been known to go visit classes before. And it may not be because I've wanted to. It's because somebody's not acting appropriately. And it's amazing. I go sit in the classroom and don't say anything and sit in the back corner. And my senior class 10 years ago, and one of those boys is on my staff now as a volunteer for me, but they were being knotheads and for a young teacher. So all I did was I went and sat in the back corner of the room. I came in before the bell rang and sat there, and you could have dropped the pin and it bounced off the carpet. I went the next day too. And it just so happened I had prepped them, but it was one of those where so many of those kids, like it's because you get down and you graduate from high school, this doesn't close the door. I'm going to be here forever, and had some situations where things have happened to kids, and you're going to be there to support them, whether it's a family thing and you go to a funeral or you go to I've had 2 different guys become Eagle Scouts. I had a number of guys become Eagle Scouts, but 2 of them asked me to come speak and read some scripture at their Eagle Scout stuff. And that's pretty moving. That's pretty cool stuff. And there's a lot more to sports. There's a lot more to weight rooms. You and I both know that. If your family needs help, we went over and I organized some kids, and a family was in need and needed some help with some stuff and just some small projects. And, we knocked out this. And the kid was like, I can't believe you came and help us. Well, why would we not? That's what we're here for. That's what Blue Jays do. We take care of each other. It's once a Blue Jay, always a Blue Jay. And it's truly, like I tell at the player parent meeting in football, and I'll tell them on Monday, I'm here to serve you. And some days you're probably not going to like me, and that's okay. I don't need high school friends, but have your best interest in mind at all times. You know what I mean? And it's it is what it is. I get to be an emotional person, and there's those times that we won in 21, and my biggest disappointment was I never got to talk to the kids after the game because there was so much going on, and the next game was going to start, and we did interviews, and there's so much excitement, and we get upstairs, and the kids were already checked out, and they were up eating, and they were gone with their families, and we were fortunate enough to win it the next year. And I didn't even say a whole lot. I bawled like a big baby, but I think, and it goes way back beyond that one group of kids, but because it started a long time ago, and there's a lot of people that help all this stuff, and it's far from me. You know what I mean? If I didn't have the people around me, the fact that my wife is still with me for 28 years and she puts up with all but she's going 100 miles an hour in her direction, I'm in mine, and we support each other, and the same with our kids. And it's like, I tell young coaches, I don't want you having your kids have to be an issue where you can't come to practice or you can't bring your kids to practice. My boys grew up at the football field, they grew up in the weight room, and they're both in college now kicking hind end. We're a family, we do things together, we take care of each other. That's just the way it works. So you do all those little things and you hope it goes and catches, and and so.
Well, in a world where everything's fake, or at least appears to be fake, it's nice that athletes have a place they can go to that they know is real, and somebody they can talk to that is going to listen and does have their best interests in mind, and just using them for a quick little bit while they're in high school.
Yeah. And do you have the same relationships with all kids? No, you don't, unfortunately. You'd like to. When COVID hit, I spent the first 3 weeks, I called every single player on our football team. And I started doing these stupid Blue Jays, what's going on. And I did, if you scroll back into my Twitter and my Instagram, 3-4 years, I was doing videos every day because one of the kids said, "Coach, it's so nice to hear your voice." And so like 3 or 4 weeks went by, I'm on the phone for like 8 hours. And my wife goes, "Are you going to do this every week?" I said, "I don't know. I'm going to do what I have to do." And we had a young man that had a really crappy situation, and I was the first one to call. And I couldn't go see him, and he couldn't come see. But it was just, he had a really tragic situation, and it's like the fact that he reached out to me first. You wish that all those relationships are the same, but unfortunately they're not. But it's funny how kids will come back, kids that you didn't think that you were probably the closest to. And, I've got a young lady that's 3 different times she sent me letters throughout the course of, since she was a 7th grader up until however old she is now, thanking me for, when I had her in health class or when I had her in the weight room where we did this. And those are the things that really mean a lot. Don't get me wrong, state championship is cool, man. Those things, you'll never forget those. But it's the Aarons back in Aberdeen that went from the shy kid that walked around with his head down, and all of a sudden he gets that confidence in this room. It just completely changed. He was scared to talk to anybody, and then he's chatting with young ladies and trying to ask girls out on dates, and he's become one of the popular guys. But there's thousands and thousands of those stories that mean more than I had a hernia a hiatal hernia that I ignored for about 4 years, and finally had it done a year and a half ago. I think everybody from the lady checking me in to my nurses, to my doctor, to the anesthesiologist, to the people that opened the car door and wheeled me out, I either had as a student or was a parent or was related to somebody. And imagine that I talked to everybody too. So, but that's okay. It's all good. So.
Well, Coach, I know you got a fishing trip planned tomorrow. I appreciate you taking some time. I know you're getting ready to start your summer program on top of all this, so that you would carve out a little bit of time to come on this show, I am really appreciative.
Hey, I appreciate you. I appreciate everything you do, and keep up the great work, man.
Well, thank you, Coach, and I hope you have a great evening.
All right. Sounds good. Take care. Thanks.